Oh, yes. Welcome to the History of LA Ska one-on-one sessions. I'm your host, Junor Francis. This series celebrates and aims to preserve and promote the ska, rocksteady, and vintage reggae scene in Southern California and beyond through insightful conversations with legends and modern-day talent, including those behind the scenes. Hence, whether you listen to this podcast series or watch us on YouTube, many thanks for your support, your invaluable support. In this wonderful and magnificent episode, we welcome veteran singer, musician, band leader, journalist, and podcast host Mento from not slaughtering his name, most notably from the fantastic city of Bakersfield, California. His seven-piece band is named Mento Buru.
That is correct, though.
Nothing was slaughtered.
Except my name.
So
Munoz, señor.
Munoz.
Yes.
Munoz.
Sí.
Yeah. I should have asked before, but
that's okay. It's okay. I like that. I like that Munzo. I like Munzo. All right.
So Munzo.
Munoz.
Munoz.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Munoz. How you say it again?
Munoz.
Yes. Right. All right. So thanks. So how is everything, man? We survived the pandemic.
Yeah, everything's going great, Junior. Just over here. I mean, what a wild 2 years it's been. You have to add the 9 months. yeah. It's just been wild. Like I don't even know. It just seems like it just kind of flew by. But I was tuning into all your podcasts. I think I got reacquainted with all my old friends from the scene over the years during the pandemic. So if there was any sort of silver lining throughout that entire time, was just reconnecting with a lot of old friends. And, by the grace of God, we're still here talking to each other,
Yes, and that really goes a long way, because we lost so many legends and, ordinary everyday people, but a lot of legends, we won't see them again, died during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Big names, names that instantly appear in mind. Let's see, Roy, of Tucson of Fabulous Matters, Bonnie Whale, and the list goes on. We can list them all.
Oh yeah, Toots and Bunny. It's like, wow, like it's very sad, but they crossed over and to get their just reward for all the beautiful things that they gave us and the music that they left behind.
Right. So we have their music to continue their memory and appreciation.
Absolutely.
So you also host a podcast called Boko Tunes. Can you talk about how that came about and what its purpose?
Yeah. Well, I started when I started out working as a journalist in it was about 2005. I had come back from LA and I got my first full-time media job. It was podcasting was a thing that was just kind of very, very new. It was very niche, and there was only one place that you could do podcasting, which was through iTunes, through Apple. And so there was only a handful of podcasts at the time. So one of my mentors, when I started working as a journalist, said, you know what, the media world is starting to change. Print media is starting to go by the wayside. It's starting to slow down. Now, if you want, the best advice I can give you is, if you want to start keeping up with what's going on with the rest of the planet, you have to start exploring some of the new mediums within journalism. And one of them was this new thing called podcasting that was starting to happen in the early 2000s. And about 2005, I started the Bako Tunes podcast through one of the products that I was running here with the Bakersfield, California newspaper. MySpace was going on, and so Bakersfield, California newspaper developed their own niche product division and kind of like a Bakersfield MySpace. So when I came in, they said, you're going to be the guy that's going to run it. Bakersfield better than anybody as a musician, as an artist. And so the podcasting became an extension of my regular reporting for the newspaper. And so what I would do is I would take a lot of the audio interviews that I would use. I could only use X amount of my interview with the artist in the newspaper, because you only got so many words. You maybe had 600 words, you had 1,000 words. But I would have these amazing interviews with legendary artists, Ray Manzarek of The Doors. I mean, I interviewed David from Steel Pulse. I mean, the list goes on and on, of Otis Williams from The Temptations. And I sat on these interviews that I'd had with these artists for many, many years. And by 2006, I had already released so many interviews with them, but podcasting was still fairly new. It's not like I had thousands of listeners. And then when they'd closed that division, my podcast just went away. But I'd saved the archive. I'd save the archive and I put everything away, because I had interviews with the Wu-Tang Clan, and it was just like this amazing archive. Podcasting starts coming back, and I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna jump back into it, because it seems like everybody had a podcast during the pandemic, and so that's kind of what happened. I revived the Bako Tunes podcast after, I don't know, maybe about 8 years. It lay dormant, so I just came back and re-released a lot of those old archive interviews, and then started reaching out to new friends. I interviewed Luis Correa from Steady Beat. I knew we'd have great conversations, and I just started reaching out to different artists to see if they wanted to be a part of it. And since I had already had an archive with some reputable names, Carlos Santana, et cetera, on down the line, I was able to invite, get the response that I wanted from artists that I wanted to interview. And so here we are,
Wow.
But it's great to hear. It's like so many friends now like have podcasts, because it's not just, yes, we're all connected, we're all connected with it. And I've been a guest on different podcasts, and, and I've been waiting to be on this podcast. So thank you for inviting me. It's been a while.
Yeah. So who are some of your most memorable guests? Who are some of the most memorable guests you've interviewed over the years?
Oh, wow. Well, definitely Carlos Santana,
No, the list is extensive.
Oh, over the years. Oh, wow.
All right, maybe contemporary then.
Contemporary. Well, I mean, there's a lot of the artists that I've interviewed that, sadly are gone. So it's a good thing that I haven't, like I mentioned, Ray Manzarek, the keyboard player from The Doors, also guitarist Ronnie Montrose. But I've interviewed Ice Cube, rapper Ice Cube. I just interviewed Earl Faulkner from UB40, because they came through Bakersfield. David from Steel Pulse. I remember when I interviewed him, you have to think about the time change. So I had to wake up at I think 3 o'clock in the morning, US time, and then
talking about devotion, my boss.
Yeah. And so I mean, you look at that. I look at the list of the people that I've interviewed, been very blessed to stay in this business, and to be able to talk to not only some of the people that I've looked up to, but just legends of entertainment in all genres.
So I'm assuming the list is too extensive for you to say your favorite or some of the standout ones.
Yeah. Well, I would say one of my favorite, and it's the late country legend Merle Haggard from Bakersfield.
I was on my way here.
Yeah. I only got to speak to him one time. I only got to see him live, even though I'm from Bakersfield and he's from Bakersfield. I only got to speak to him one time. We spoke on the phone for 10 minutes, and he was one of the most kind, genuine people I've ever spoken to. Just was very, hey, how you doing? And let's talk and everything like that. Sometimes when you interview some of these legends, they get kind of grumpy. Like they don't want to have to talk about anything. But I called him up at his home, and we just talked about a bunch of different things. And he talked about, giving, performing for charities for the Ronald McDonald House, and how he still enjoyed playing, and that he was hoping to live until he was 100. And, sadly we lost him a few years after that. But, you just never know. You just never know who's going to respond very positively, or they just don't want to talk. But, every artist has a little bit of ego. So you got to know how to kind of rub them the right way. And then they open up. But then there's some artists where you'll never get a word in, because they want to talk about everything that they're doing, so they make the job easy.
Right. I also listened to the one of Bob Marley, guitarist Al.
Yes. Al Anderson. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That was definitely one of my favorites. Because he was very candid about his relationship with Bob, and he was ready to talk about his true feelings, about it was around the time when the Marley documentary was being released, and it was kind of making the rounds. And that was what I really wanted to know. And he ended up kind of guiding our conversation a few different ways. And I said, "Are you sure you want to talk about?"
Interesting ways. It's well worth watching.
Yeah. Yeah. And I said, "Are you sure you want to talk about all these things?" I said, "I just want the people to know the truth." And that, he had never been truly reached out to by the Marley estate. He's been kind of like X'd out, and everybody has their story, their version of the story. And I just thought that, hey, if you want to talk about it, I'm all ears. And it's probably one of the most downloaded episodes of all the podcasts that I've had. And I sat on that one for many, many years, because the thing with Al Anderson is he has stopped. We have a few music stores in downtown Bakersfield, one in particular, Front Porch Music, that specializes in a lot of vintage guitars. And there's a lot of guitar players that on their travels will stop at that particular store. So Al Anderson, even if it's not a Wailers show, because the Wailers have performed here many, many times over the years, whether it's downtown, it's at some small pubs here and there and everything like that, he'll stop and he'll check out some guitars and, just kind of hang out, and then somebody will post on Facebook, "Hey, Al Anderson from the Wailers stopped in Bakersfield again." And you'll be surprised at how many musicians during their tour will stop in Bakersfield. And it's not just for the Mexican food. It's for the vintage stores, for the vintage music stores that we have here. We're kind of in this little isolated pocket of the Central Valley between, Bakersfield and Fresno. That if musicians talk and they say, "Oh, you need to go over there and check out Front Porch Music." Guitarist Ry Cooder has stopped through here many times. Rockabilly guitarist, kind of punk rockabilly guitarist, Reverend Horton Heat, Dave Grohl. The Foo Fighters have rehearsed. They use the Bakersfield arena as a place to rehearse. So the list of artists that have stopped in Bakersfield and spent many times goes way up and beyond just stopping for a tour stop. They'll come over here, antique shopping. They want to get away from the hustle and bustle of Los Angeles, and you'll just kind of casually run into these, artists around here, So I've been lucky to be able to kind of have these conversations.
Right. Yeah. The conversation with Al Anderson, really fascinating. But I have a friend, he's become an ancestor now, and extremely well respected. As a matter of fact, he was a professor and did a lot of research. And he has utmost respect for Bob Marley and John Lennon for two reasons. He said that Bob Marley, in his research, that Bob Marley paid his musicians very well. I think he gave them 50%. He took 50%. And John Lennon would insist that all the band members would get their names somehow. He would tell Paul that they need to get their names on record so that they would get royalty. And I don't know exactly how that works. But so he has tremendous respect for those two over and above other musicians. And he's an extensive collector. Long live. So I was shocked when Al Anderson said some of the things about working with Bob.
Yeah. He was, I could tell that he loved Bob, and Al Anderson has his own history in popular music through, his life in the UK. And, he was kind of rough with those around him, with the, and I would love to have a talk with him now to see, if he's had any sort of, contact with the Marley family, with the Marley estate, to see if they've kind of buried the hatchet on anything over the past. But it doesn't seem like it. There are two versions of the Wailers out there performing.
I think, isn't it three?
Huh? Oh, is there three?
It could very well be. Nothing I share should be taken seriously or quoted.
Yeah, I know there's the original Wailers, there's the original Wailers, and then there's the Wailers, just the Wailers. So yeah, I'm sure there is. Hey, everybody's got to work.
Right. So now we have driven a significant number of people to your podcast.
Yeah. Hey, listen, continue to listen, please, by all means. I really wanted the people to listen to those because the Al Anderson interview, for example, was one of those interviews where I definitely couldn't, when I did, I believe it was originally used for a preview of a small pub that they were doing. And we ended up speaking for almost 2 hours. Oh, the Wailers. Yeah. So he was touring as the Wailers. It wasn't even the original Wailers. There was the Wailers that were touring. So you never know who you were going to get. But to me, I always assumed as long as I saw Al Anderson in the lineup, that was going to be as close as we were going to get. And then I sat on that interview, was just in my digital archive for the last time. So if you listen to it on the Bako Tunes podcast, that's the first time that you're gonna hear the full conversation. So I went through a lot of those interviews and I said, well, I don't know if people want to hear this, but it was around the time that we were gonna do. It was around one of Bob Marley's birthdays, and we do our big tribute every year. And I thought, well, you know what, I'll just release it, and hopefully people will appreciate it for what it was. I know there was a little controversy in there, but anytime when it comes to these artists that were larger than life, that are so legendary, that are so well known, once they're passed, you're always going to have so many multiple stories. And I just let the artist speak. So I wasn't going to be choosing sides, because I love Bob and I love Al Anderson and I love all these musicians, and I respect them dearly, and they have the experience, and this is their version of their relationship with somebody like Bob Marley. Not too many people can say that they had that. And so I had to respect how he felt. And obviously he's still out there able to perform Bob Marley's music. So there's got to be some truth to what he was talking about in whatever area,
Yeah, he's excellent guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take you back to your youth. What music were you exposed to as a child growing up? And you grew up right there in Bakersfield, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm in Bakersfield now, but I grew up in a small farming town called McFarland, California, which is 22 miles north of Bakersfield. It's a little small farming town right there. We're known for agriculture. We're surrounded by fields, dairies. A lot of our parents, worked out in those fields. My father worked he was a foreman for for a winery, because there's a lot of vineyards out here. So he worked. He was a foreman for the union, for the wine allied union workers right here. Delegated those early contracts with Cesar Chavez and United Farm Workers Union. So he was very much there. My parents were very much involved in civil rights, Latinos entering politics and everything like that. And so, my father came from Mexico, but he loved jazz music. So I grew up listening to big band jazz. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. So by the time it got to me, I grew up listening to so many eras of music, from big band jazz to Latin music, to a lot of, my sisters, who are a few years older than I was, and I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. It was a lot of soul and funk music. So I listened to what people would call old school now, old school funk, but it was all new to me at that time. So I was, music just was always in the house all the time. But I'm a child of the 80s. So I absorbed everything that my family listened to in the house, and I gravitated to whatever I thought I would like at the time as a kid, Duke Ellington, all that classic stuff, into all the soul and funk music of, dance music that my sisters were always blaring in the house, and I had to listen to it. And we watched Soul Train, we watched Soul Train and American Bandstand on TV. So I was just, your typical American kid, growing up in the Central Valley.
So when did you start playing instrument and singing?
Yeah. I started playing, I entered, music just like most kids, elementary school. You start playing the flutophone, which is the little plastic flute, and you learn in elementary school. And if you have an interest, I think that's kind of like a testing ground. Like if you're good at playing this plastic flute, then maybe you can graduate to joining the band or something. So originally I wanted to play the trumpet, but my parents were all, nah, we can't afford a trumpet for you. But your brother has an old saxophone, and it was an old Japanese tenor saxophone. And at the time, I think it was in the third grade. I used to be really, really short. I didn't sprout until later in life, but the tenor saxophone was so big that I had to sit it on the ground, and it was just too much for me. I didn't have the lungs to blow through the horn. And so the teacher said, you know what? Why don't we just get you an alto saxophone? And so my parents, it was my mom, she says, I'll go rent you an alto saxophone. She brought it over, and I just, went from there. And in fact, at the time when it was in the beginning band into the intermediate band, I wasn't very good. So they were saying, well, you know what? You're not going to be able to go to the intermediate band because, you didn't pass these tests. And I was practicing all the time and doing all that. And my mom raised such a stink. She says, we rented that horn. We paid all this money for our son to be in this music program. And you're telling us that he cannot proceed to the next level? Like, no, that's not going to happen. So the teacher just said, okay, Mrs. Munoz, we'll just put him in the band. We'll just put him in there. And so from that point on, like, I had to prove myself. And so, I just went through that elementary school into high school, and all the kids that started out with me, by the time we got into high school, they had already dropped off and lost interest because, they were like, oh, we don't want to be in band anymore. It's not cool. And my parents, even when I got into high school, they're like, you wanted that instrument so much.
That's right.
You're going to have to stay in it. You're going to stay. And I just grew to love it because it was kind of a ticket to be able to go on trips with the band. So they would put me in summer youth band and all that stuff. And I had no intention on singing at all. It was just, I'm just an instrumentalist. I played in the marching band. And then when I got into college and all that, it was jazz band and all that stuff. And, I sang in the choir, because there wasn't much to do around here in these little farming towns, but, we just kind of gravitated to what we do. And then, I'd play along to records at home and keep myself entertained with those delusions, those dreams of one day I'm going to be a big star. I'm sitting in the bedroom playing with my records and all that stuff.
Oh, I'm quite sure your parents and your family are proud, right? When they Mento Buru playing all over America, right? And especially
No, we've had a really good time.
Entertainment capital of the world to play in LA.
The journeys that we've had as a band, and that I've had personally, I mean, very blessed to be able to just kind of like recollect and talk about all these fun things we have. But it starts in those being a small, a kid from a small town and just having those dreams, and you just kind of never know where it's going to take you. I mean, everybody's journey is different. And for me, being from this small town and getting to meet so many people and have so many longtime friendships, like somebody like Eric, I've known Eric for so long, and Luis and John Roy from Unsteady, and so many of these people that I've crossed paths with over the years. It's pretty amazing that, that we're still here and we're still playing different types of music and still, playing ska and reggae and, enjoying those memories of our youth and still making it happen today.
Which leads to my next question. Your first exposure, the first time you heard ska and or reggae.
Yeah. So let's see. Well, definitely, I would say the first reggae tune I ever heard that I knew this was this thing called reggae was Third World, Now That We Found Love, because
you had heard the name reggae before, but not the actual music.
No, I didn't know what it was because we didn't have any access to that type of music, and this was pre MTV, and if there was anything that was going to be on the radio, I think the first song that you actually heard on mainstream radio, especially like R&B radio, was Now That We Found Love by Third World. That it kind of crossed over.
Yes.
So it's kind of like
the disco era now.
Yeah, disco era type thing. I didn't know who Bob Marley was. I'd seen pictures of Bob Marley because let me see. My first exposure to Bob Marley was if you had 96 Degrees in the Shade, or I think it was a Journey to Addis, Third World, and you opened it up and it was an Island Records. Now on the cover, the sleeves of those albums, you had all the pictures. And I was like, who is this guy with, he's got these dreads and all that stuff. I didn't even know what dreads were. I mean, I'm telling you, where we were from, very isolated, you know. And so I was like, Bob Marley, Bob Marley, Bob Marley. I go, he's obviously somebody big, but I had no idea who it was. And my sisters didn't have any of his records. Maybe my brother did, but he had already moved out of the house and he was living up north. And so as far as I knew, it was Third World was reggae. And I love that album. I still own that album. I love Journey to Addis is an amazing album. And so from then on, it was just, you know, from that reggae tune, and I didn't even hear Bob Marley 2 years later. It was your typical 80s, the Specials, all the two-tone, but you don't even think about that that's what ska is. I didn't even know what ska was. I did not even hear the word. You know, by the time I discovered the Specials were already had just broken up. And so I was just kind of discovering, you know, gravitating to whatever it was, because to me it was very fascinating. I like the, you know, their style. I like the checkers, you know, it was a very 1980s thing. So it was like, well, I was able to get one Specials tape and I would just listen to it over and over. And then of course you saw MTV came on, and so you saw One Step Beyond, and then you saw how that was connected to more Specials, and then it was Bad Manners, and then you heard Too Much Pressure, and it just goes on and on and on. But then, you know, there was in the 80s, there was also bands like Oingo Boingo from Los Angeles who were incorporating that real kind of two-tonish punk ska into their sound. So as far as I knew, anything that was ska was anything two-tone related. You know,
Right.
there was no traditional, there was no old school original sounds. So it was either Third World or any sort of British ska. That's all I knew about those two sounds.
So your baptism, that's how your baptism came about.
Mm-hmm.
How
Absolutely.
about your first concert?
My
Ska,
first concert.
reggae, two-tone.
Oh, like my first ska concert?
Yeah, or reggae or two-tone.
Okay. My first two-tone, let me see. What was the first concert? The first reggae, let me see. My first ska show. Oh, the Untouchables.
Yeah.
You know, I can't go on about all that without mentioning the Untouchables. How could I forget about that? Because around the time of the 80s, when Live and Let Dance by the Untouchables came out, and Free Yourself, you know, that was another that kind of built that bridge for me as well. It's like, okay, there's ska bands in Los Angeles, and you know, they had the suits and they kind of resembled the Specials. So I was able to go see we drove to LA in my old beat up white pickup, and we went to the Agent 00 Soul show at the John Anson Ford Theater. And it was the Untouchables, and I got to see like a bunch of good bands for the first time. No Doubt, the Donkey Show, and the Skeletones. So I saw that and I was like, holy smokes, you know, like, you know, here I'm a sax player in Bakersfield, and there's this other scene that's going on that Bakersfield had no idea about. They didn't have any, I mean, these bands weren't coming around. We weren't getting ska shows in Bakersfield. It was just, you know, I'd go to these shows and I'd bring these tapes back and I'd play them to my friends. I'm like, hey man, you know, I didn't play guitar, but I played saxophone. I said, you got to see some of these bands, man, you know. And then, you know, I saw Fishbone, you know, blew my mind. I mean, it was after I saw Fishbone, I was like, this band kind of encapsulates everything that I love about the music that I love. I love punk rock music. I love ska, and those shows were absolutely bananas. And it was once again at the John Anson Ford Theater. I got to see the Truth and Soul tour, and it was Fishbone, Double D Nose, who Schreiber from Ye Olde English was a member of that band, and rapper Schoolie D. And it was just one of those shows, like, you had to be there, like nothing else like it, you know, nothing else like being there at those times when everybody was into it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, interesting. So let's talk about the formation now of Mento Buru. Is that what inspired you, having seen this band? Is that what inspired you to form the band?
Yeah. You know, like I said, I would go to these shows and I went to many shows. I would go over there. I saw let's go bowling. I would go to the Reseda Country Club and go to these shows. And any chance I had, if I was dating somebody, I had a girlfriend or something, I said, hey, let's go to these shows. Let's go to Reseda. I didn't know anybody, but I was all kind of swept up in that. And it just really it really touched me. And I said, well, I don't play guitar, but I play sax. I was still a member of the Bakersfield College marching band and the jazz band. And I would bring, like I said, I would buy these tapes from these bands, bring them back. And I'd say, I need to form a band. And I would talk to different friends and, I don't know, man. Oh, that's cool and all that stuff. Oh, yeah, it's like madness. Oh yeah, one step beyond, I said, no, but this is a scene that's going over there. And they would just kind of laugh at me like, dude, nobody's going to be into that over here. That this is Bakersfield, bro. Everybody was into, rock and, metal, heavy metal, because the band Korn, the heavy metal band Korn was really big in the 90s. And so the local scene was just into like heavy rock. There was absolutely no reggae in town. So I said, well, I'm going to start placing an ad in a local newspaper. And it was called the Music Note. And you can place little free ads. And I said, musicians wanted to start a ska reggae band. And I had my phone number.
What time for the record?
On
or about what time?
This was in 1990. This was 1991.
1991.
Yeah, 1991. So we're coming on that, Fishbone's blowing up. And so like all that stuff, my excitement at this time was like at full tilt. Like I got to form a band and we're going to see who kind of, gravitates towards it. So I placed the ad in the newspaper. Huh?
What was the response to the ad?
Well, it was funny because I was getting a lot of phone calls to my apartment number, and they would ask me like, hey, they'd say like, who wants to start a ska band in Bakersfield? So we got a lot of kind of like these bizarre questions like, is this for real? Well, let me know when you form the band. He's like, I don't want to be in the band, but let me know when you form it so I can come see you. So it was just one of those.
The people had interest.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was working for a local Sears retailer, and I did get one message from a gentleman who says, hey, I have a band that plays in Bakersfield every once in a while that I had no idea about, and we're called Triple R Sounds, Roots Rock Reggae, and we're a dub band. We're just play dub. And I was like, where does this even exist? Well, what I found out by hanging out with this guy, and he came into my store and he had full on dreads and everything like that. And I was like, whoa, like we have dreads in Bakersfield. I had no idea about this. And I expected him to have a Jamaican accent. No, he was just a guy, American dude who was into reggae. And he helped open my mind to these kind of sub scenes that were happening around California. He goes, well, I do some construction work around the area, and I have a band, and the guys come in from different parts of town, and we're going to do some couple shows. Do you want to sit in with us? And so I went over there. It was like 2 nights at this little pub in Bakersfield, and they would just play tunes. But that particular night, there was a bunch of guys and gals that were coming in, and I was just kind of looking around, and I was like, okay, well, I took my late brother, Joe Vasquez, who was a trombone player. We were still just in the jazz band and the marching band. And I said, why don't you go with me and let's go sit in with these guys and see what they're all about. So they're just playing a bunch of dubs, and, they were playing covers by Oswald and everything like that. And they'd say, well, why don't you do this? Just play along with us. And so I was kind of like, I'm getting really excited about all this. And next thing you know, a guy gets up and starts toasting. And then another guy starts getting up and toasting. And all these guys start getting up and toasting. I said, well, where are all these people coming from? He's like, dude, Bakersfield is filled with a lot of immigrant populations from different. There's a lot of Haitians that live here. There's a lot of Jamaicans that live here. There's a lot of Ethiopians that live around here. I was like, no way. Like, where are they at? I had no idea. All these people from these particular places would find their way to each other. There was a restaurant that used to exist in downtown Bakersfield, and it was run by a gentleman by the name of Abraham. I don't know whatever happened to him, but on the weekends, it was an Ethiopian restaurant, and people still don't believe me unless you lived here. You don't remember this. but it was an Ethiopian restaurant in downtown Bakersfield. And on the weekends, they would spin reggae and everybody would go to that. So it looked like a dance hall in Jamaica. You walk in, and unless you were African American, unless you were black, you were probably going to be the lightest person that was in there. And so we went in there, and I said, man, this music's cool. You can smell the food. You smell all these scents that you were not used to in Bakersfield. And for the short time, that restaurant was like the place to be. And it was kind of like the center of this kind of African Jamaican culture, and everybody felt very comfortable in there. Well, eventually I believe it was probably the Bakersfield Police Department had kind of started like, what is this? What is all this about? What is all these Jamaican flags, and what is all this, the flags and all this stuff going on? They didn't get it. Well, they ended up kind of putting a little bit too much heat on the restaurant, and there was nothing going on there. It was just people wanted to go over there to enjoy the music and enjoy the food and feel comfortable. It's like a home away from home. You're in the middle of the Central Valley in Kern County, and a gentleman decides to open up, of all places, of all things, an Ethiopian restaurant in downtown Bakersfield, and it was just the place to be. And then he ended up shutting it down, and he ended up moving away to another part of Bakersfield. Like he still stayed in Bakersfield, but that was kind of like my baptism into what was possible in Bakersfield. So if this Ethiopian restaurant can work, and I started meeting some of the other individuals, they said, well, whenever you want to start a reggae band, you will come out and support it. And so when we started getting responses from that ad, and the people that I knew, the gentleman from Triple R Sounds Roots Rock Reggae, I just started putting all the pieces together, and we started reaching out to other friends, and they said, well, why don't we just form a band? It was just like one of those things. Let's just get together in the garage. And so the original band was made up of members of the Triple R Sounds reggae band, then me and Joe Vasquez, and then some other friends from some other bands. And over the years, it kind of changed names. And we didn't even have a name there for a while, because I was like, we're Triple R Sounds, but it's not that same band anymore. And when we kind of figured out who was going to be in the band that would eventually become Mento Buru, we didn't have a name at all. And he goes, there was another original singer by the name of Bob Dunn who was singing. I was just in the horn section, and he goes, hey man, we're going to play this reggae fest in Bakersfield, and we're going to actually open up for Joe Higgs. Joe Higgs is going to come to Bakersfield. I didn't even know who Joe Higgs was at the time. I didn't know how important he was to reggae music, but there was a guy in town. He was a white dude, Mikey Clark. He's still a good friend of mine, drummer, and he loved reggae. And so he used to throw these reggae fests in Bakersfield, and it started out in his backyard, and it started getting so popular that he would move it to the local fairgrounds. And he goes, hey, I'm going to let you guys open up the show, but I need a name. So Bob Dunn, who was kind of like the leader of the band at the time, he goes, everybody go home and try to figure out a name that we can use for this band, this new band that we started. And we only had like 8 songs at the time. And he goes, we all came with names, but I started looking, I said, I think we're stealing names from other bands that sounded cool. And I was like, okay, well, none of us have dreads. How are we going to kind of represent ourselves the best way so that people don't automatically think with this name, they're going to, we couldn't put dread in the name. We couldn't put, roots this, because we are very much students of the sound. We're not all very well versed in reggae. And Bob says, hey, I'm looking through this book of Jamaican history, music history. And I said, he goes, I have a name. And what is it? He goes, Mento Buru.
Wow.
And we just kind of, okay, what does Mento Buru mean? And he goes, well, Mento folk music from the Mento folk music from the movement in Jamaica. And he goes, Buru, the Buru drummers of Jamaica. And so he goes, that's what makes up the origins of reggae and ska.
Wow.
And we're like, at the time we're like, okay, let's go with it, because we had maybe 2 weeks to go before the big show opening up for Joe Higgs, who was, the mentor to Bob Marley. And we're like, we got to come correct. So we went out there, we did our show. Everybody had a really good time, and we knew we were on to something. So we just kept on going. kept on going, kept on going. We were playing, we play songs like Warrior Charge by Oswald, A Message to You, Rudy. Of course, No Woman, No Cry. We played a bunch of Bob Marley tunes and maybe 2 originals.
Mm.
And then after a while, sadly, Bob Dunn ended up getting cancer. It was just this really long illness for him, and he had to move away. And so the band Triple R Sounds, Mento Buru, kind of went on this hiatus. So all of us in the band said, well, we really miss playing. Matt, why don't you start singing? And I said, well, man, I don't sing. I'm just a sax player, and I sing up, back up, and I make the noise. I make the ska, like chick it up. I do all that on stage. And then they go, no, so, no, man, I know you can sing. I know you can sing. So we had a couple rehearsals. I got pushed up into being the lead singer of the band, and it just went from there in 1993 till the present day.
Wow, almost 2 decades next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not only that, the original members.
Yeah.
That is,
The original, the most original. Yeah.
Right?
No, well, a lot of we've had some lineup changes over the years. I mean, the longest lasting band member who left and came back is our drummer Cesario Garasa. He was there in the very beginning before he moved away, but we've gone through a number of changes, and sadly we've lost a couple original members. Like I said, Joe Vasquez, our trombone player, who passed away, Scott Thompson, who was our other sax player. We started together as the horn section of Mento Buru band, and sadly we lost both of them. So there's just me. I'm the sole original member of the band, but we've had some band members who've been in at least 15, 16 years or longer.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier in passing that you lost one of your brothers.
Yeah, well, I call him my brother Joe Vasquez. Yeah, he was my one of my best friends, but he was our trombone player. And I call him my brother because we were really close, and we came up together through the musical ranks of the Bakersfield music scene into the formation of Mento Buru. But he passed away a few year ago. And so we definitely had a brotherhood, because we were in the band together for so long. We were friends even before we formed Mento Buru. It was one of those things where, like, I would kind of have to drag him along. Hey, Matt, hey, man, we're going to go jam with this reggae dub band that I have no idea what we're getting ourselves into, but you got to go with me. I can't go over there without you, bro. I play the sax, you play the trombone. I'm going to be rolling Alfonso. You're going to be Don Drummond, bro. We got to go.
That profound love. So why did Mento Buru choose to focus on playing that high energy, energetic Latin influence ska blend with some traditional funk, Latin rhythm, and just about everything else? What was that?
Yeah, everything but the kitchen sink, right? Yeah, well, when we first started out, I originally wanted us to focus on that two-tone, really high energy and fishbone style. Let's mix everything together. And but Mento Buru, when you hear that, when you see the name, you assume this is going to be a roots reggae band, and we would focus on we would play a lot of roots reggae music, but eventually when you start listening to the other members in the band, it's like, hey, I want to play some faster stuff. And like I said, we would go to these shows in LA and we would see bands like Let's Go Bowling, Fishbone, all those, the Untouchables, and we would see how they would be able to combine it. They would have a reggae tune. Like Untouchables would play What's Gone Wrong, and then they would have like I Spy for the FBI. Fishbone would have a little bit of this, and it was all crazy. I said, we got to be like the Fishbone Untouchables of Bakersfield. We need to bring that over here because there was nobody else that was doing it. So eventually we figured, you know what? There for a while, we did try to change the name of Mento Buru to a different name because we felt that we were going too far away from what the original idea of Mento Buru was supposed to be. Was supposed to be a reggae band with a few ska inflected tunes. Not very traditional, not in the Scatolite sense of ska, but it was all kind of two-tone, upbeat ska. So for a very short time, we were actually called Blowfish, which you see that name, it sounds like Fishbone. But we just were just having a good time. We did a show as Blowfish. Nobody showed up. So we go, let's go back to Mento Buru.
Yes, sir.
Let's go back to Mento Buru, and we'll just kind of be ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We kept on going. We're starting to write our first original tunes, and we're starting to incorporate, everything that I was learning about going to those shows in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I was bringing that back. I said, some of the guys in the band are really into jazz music. Some of the guys are really into heavy music. Some of them are into reggae. Some of them are into ska. Some are alternative rock music. We're going to have some sort of a happy medium here, because it's not like like in LA, you have a pool of musicians where you can kind of pick.
Right.
You could just cast a wide net for musicians. In Bakersfield, for a band like Mento Buru to exist at that time was like, you have to find the right people with very open minds, and to be able to adapt to particular styles. People would say, oh, I play ska, that's very easy to play. But then when you sit them down and you say, okay, we'll play a ska beat, and their ska beat is not correct, and you're like, it's not as easy as you think it is. It requires some finesse, and it requires a lot of feel. So by the time we were already a couple years into Mento Buru, I was already feeling like I understood the different types of ska music. I was still more focused on ska than reggae. So Mento Buru really started getting into that third wave ska. Like we were playing a little bit of Latin ska, but I wanted to play that really upbeat 90s thing, and then Moon Ska discovered us, and we got signed to Moon Ska. So we were right deep into that whole third wave ska, frenetic,
yes,
punk ska. I mean, it was all over the place. That whole ska explosion, we were in the middle of it, but we were so far removed because we were over here in Bakersfield, and this is pre-internet. So the only way that we would ever any contact with bands that were like us was if we made those treks to Los Angeles and met more people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And along the way, we met Luis.
Mm-hmm. And when was that first trek to Los Angeles?
The first time we played there was 1994. And we played at the Hong Kong Cafe.
I was going to ask you what venue.
Yeah.
Luis was doing his shows, right?
Yeah, Luis, and it was when he was the Blackpool, when he was known as the Blackpool. And I've asked him about this. I said, I don't know how we got connected, but he just took a chance on us, and he says, yeah, hey, sure, if you want to come over here and play, I got a show, here it is. And so the original band went over there, and it was already kind of in that one of those early transitions. Marcos Reyes, who's our longtime percussionist, and he's now a member of the band War, the funk band War. But he's, and he's already been with them for many years. That was he was there in the band. He was a member of the band at the time. And we had a really good time. We played with C-Spot and a few other bands. I can't remember, but I actually have a cassette from that show because Luis would record every single
show. You should mention his last name, out of respect. Because, he's still Luis Carreras, right?
Yeah, Luis Correa, yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, he's still doing shows. He has a show coming up soon.
Yeah, Luis is a good buddy. He's up there with Mr. Eric Kohler to me, like two gentlemen who've been part of my musical journey for so many years, either as a musician or in the entertainment industry journalism world. We're kind of bound by the same interests and trust and respect that we have.
Yes. Yeah. And approximately how many CDs the band has to its credit?
We have, let's see, we have our No Dancing Please, which released on Moon Ska.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a self-titled. Then we have a compilation called 15 Crucial Tracks, which are kind of like a best of everything when we were able to get access to the No Dancing Please masters when we were, Bucket Hingley had said, oh, hey, you guys can go ahead and do whatever you want. Moon Ska's closed. We're tearing up the contracts. Go ahead and do whatever you want with the music. We had freedom to do whatever. So we re-released it. And then we have a holiday album, East Bakersfield Christmas. we have we have a holiday album, East Bakersfield Christmas. We have a Christmas album, Halloween album. Everything's just kind of like, it's kind of a blur. And we've been on many compilations around the world, from UK to Brazil to France to Mexico. It was definitely a 90s thing to be on so many great ska music compilations.
Yeah, Mento Buru, definitely pride and joy of Bakersfield. I want to ask you about the most memorable show that you have performed on. Perhaps it could be many, means plural, or it could be one.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
It
let's
has
see.
stayed with you.
Yeah, that stay with me. Oh yeah, and there's been tons of those. Well, we did finally get to, after many years, we did get to share the stage with our heroes Fishbone here in Bakersfield at a small club. And you know, just being able to look over and see like Norwood Fisher and, you know, Angelo.
What
you
a
know,
journey, sir.
Yeah,
You're
just
heroes.
kind of like, I'm just
Playing
kind of
along.
like looking over there, and I'm like, yeah, all right, you know. I would say that, but yeah, but being able to play with people like Joe Higgs, HR from Bad Brains, we played with him a number of times.
Any ska legend has Mento Buru performed alongside any ska or rocksteady legends outside
Yes.
of Joe Higgs? Because Joe
Yeah,
Higgs
you know,
considered himself reggae. He didn't play ska.
yeah. No, he didn't play ska. Oh, you know, we did get to play with the Specials in Fresno with Let's Go Bowen. It was one of the incarnations, and definitely I think we played with Bad Manners. We played with the Special Beat with Dave Wakeling. Even on his solo shows, we've gotten to know Dave Wakeling pretty well. As we were one of the only ska reggae bands in this area, they would always team us up with anybody. And we played with the Untouchables and everybody, all the legends. We did get to open up for the Scatolites. We brought the Scatolites to Bakersfield one time, and I can remember it vividly. It was a small club downtown called Spikes. The Scatolites rolled up in a Winnebago. They all came down. Tommy McCook had already passed away, but you still had Ron Alfonso, Dorian Schaefer, Lloyd Nibbs, Lloyd Brevitt. I don't know who. I can't remember who else was in there, but you had the core of the band. The core of the original band was still there. I think one of the only notable names was Tommy McCook had already passed away, but I got to see the Scatolites in Los Angeles during Skavuvi tours and all that. And I remember when Lloyd Brevitt was playing, and he was playing the opening band's bass. And I remember he was cooking, man. He was cooking, and then it just blew up. And you just saw the thing of smoke come through the back of the amp. And he just looked over, and he just looked at the band, and he just started laughing, and he just kept on playing, you know. Because that amp couldn't take the impact of his bass playing.
This is not movie. This is real.
Oh yeah. This is real. And he just kept on playing. And then they hurry up and rushed and got another bass amp and plugged it in.
Nothing would stop.
Nothing. They just kept on going. Yeah, they just kept on going. Yeah, I remember they played Freedom Sounds. They played all those tunes. And I remember that after the show was over, I walked over and I hung out with them. They signed my vinyl. I got to sit down and talk to Rowan Alfonso, and he told me about his his family roots in Cuba and Jamaica. And I told him about one of the songs that I had written that was on our Moonska album, and it was called Streets of Gold. And it was based on two songs. One was the Rowan Alfonso and the Soul Vendors Streets of Gold. And then it was also, I was inspired to write lyrics to Rowan Alfonso solo for our version of it. And we made it, it's kind of a combination of two. And so what I basically did is, if you listen to the Rowan Alfonso and the Soul Vendors version of Streets of Gold, and you listen to our version, you'll see they're very connected. They're not very much of the same songs, but when Charlie Parker, the jazz legend, vocalists used to write lyrics to his solos. So if you listen to like songs like Parker's Mood, there are vocal versions of those songs based on Charlie Parker's melodies. And so if you hear the Rowan Alfonso Soul Vendor Streets of Gold, it's So, and I put it, my pains don't come lightly. You see, I'm constantly fighting under the pressure from my boss. My life without a cost. I feel my end is near. And I told Roland, I said, I wanted to pay tribute to you the way they paid tribute to Charlie Parker. Wow. And I wrote it, and he just kind of gave me a big old hug. And I just said, hey, I really hope you like the song. And yeah, that was one of my most cherished moments. And everybody in the Scatolites was nice.
I can imagine. Yes, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Wow. And that song is available, the title, so that those who are viewing and listening can go search for it.
Yeah. Streets of Gold, Mento Buru. It's a very special song.
Availability. Where is it available?
It's on all the digital outlets. All the digital outlets. If you have a copy of our first album, No Dancing Please, that was on Moon Ska, you'll find it right there. Yeah. So just kind of like listen to the two songs. I mean, and it was I wanted to do that, and I was so happy when they came to Bakersfield of all places, because I got to go see the Scatolites. I traveled. There was for a while. I saw them maybe 5 times within a month. I traveled all over the state to go see them, and it was just like Fishbone. It was the Fishbone and the Scatolites, those two worlds. I was just kind of like obsessed by wanting to see them. I would find any way to make it out to Ventura, to Los Angeles, to Fresno, to San Francisco, to Oakland, wherever they were playing. I would just make a mission out of it to go find them. And then when we got the call that they were coming to Bakersfield, a lot of my friends could not believe it. They were like, there's no way that this is happening, and that's one of those stories that I'll never forget.
One of those stories. Now we segue into our good friend here, producer
Matt.
Yes,
Matt.
He's been waiting like a coach tiger to join the conversation.
Thank you for the kind
words. Yeah. So there's so many memories that I was like, wow. I wish my data bank could move a little bit faster to be able to go back into those days, because there are some things I'm like, I know tonight when I'm laying in bed, I'm going to be going, oh shoot, I should have brought that up. I'm going
to remind you about a few that you haven't touched on yet. But I also want to say, to your point earlier when you were saying some very kind things about me, but I always so much love and respect for you, but you're someone who obviously I see through the ska scene, but I also remember downtown LA at a Mexican wrestling event down there. I don't know if it was a mine or something. I think you were down there. I ran into you randomly. This was many years ago. And then Coachella, you were out there as covering, right, where you got to hang out there. When Reggae Nucleus was around. Actually, we were out there at the Reggae Fest you were talking about, when the iTals.
That was one of the So Junor was there too at that one. That was years later. That was at Stramler Park. And I knew that. I remember that when you guys made that trek.
That must have been late 90s. Somewhere around there. But
was that the one that Ozo Motley played as well? Because we brought Ozo Motley to those Reggae Fests.
I think so.
2 times.
I think so. I have a probably the ad in Reggae Nucleus I can look at, but that sounds right. It might have been iTels, Wendy Shaw, Ozo Motley, Mento Buru. I think you guys have played every year, right? You were the resident. Right, you remember that trip?
Yeah, man, because right. Because I introduced Wendy Shaw and iTel. Say, well, I ain't coming out without you introducing.
Yeah, there was some really fantastic bands that would come through. Mongoose.
Right, Mongoose. I remember.
Right,
my mom. Yeah.
Talk about memory juggling.
Yeah.
Oh, the Reggae Angels.
Right.
Yeah. They're still performing.
They still, a legend who I believe you also shared the stage with, Desmond Decker, San Pedro.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. How could I forget that show at the Waters Club in San Pedro?
Right.
Oh wow. Yeah. To be able to go over there and play, and I remember right before this is kind of the sad thing about this that I always had to tell people. I said, we had to leave before Desmond took the stage.
How is that possible?
Well, what happened was we got an offer to play another show in Hollywood.
Oh, the same.
It was for like a Chicano underground art show. And we were like, well, if we're gonna drive all the way over there, we have to kind of make it worth our while. And I was the one. I was like, oh, I really want to stick around for Desmond Decker. And the guy's like, listen, man, we have to make a decision. Are we gonna go or not? So we packed in the car. We went to Los Angeles, and we ended up doing that show. And I remember we didn't even end up going on until like 2 a.m. So we could have caught Desmond Decker. We caught ourselves. We put ourselves in so many weird predicaments on so many of those adventures to Los Angeles.
Oh, I could.
But that's definitely one of the ones that stuck out. But if we had not gone to played that show in Hollywood, we would have not met DJ Michael Sanchez, who was a resident DJ at Luna Park.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you about Luna Park, how that came about. Right.
Yeah, it was through him. We were probably playing in front of like maybe 4 people. It was almost 3 o'clock in the morning, and then the DJ was up there, and he goes, "Hey, you guys played a Willie Bobo tune." And I was like, yeah, Willie Bobo, yeah. He's like, see, and you guys play ska too, yeah. So we had played everything. We were already kind of developing our sound into like we're playing straight up Latin, and then we're gonna play some reggae tunes because that's what was happening in LA. We were kind of like, if it's happening over there, we're gonna do this kind of same thing,
Sure.
And we liked it. So Michael Sanchez says, I know I DJ at this club called Luna Park, and I think you guys would fit. And so that's kind of where that relationship had gone on. So we had started in that really independent ska scene, but then we kind of graduated into the bigger clubs, Temple Bar, Luna Park. I mean, there was some, Di Piazzas in Long Beach.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you would straddle and do and still do both, right? Because Lewis was still doing some shows then, and then you did you also do Blue Beat Lounge?
Yeah, we did Blue Beat Lounge with Chris. Yeah, we did lots of Louis shows. In fact, when everybody shares those flyers, there's so many shows that I forgot.
A lot of them.
Yeah. And when there's some shows I could never forget some of those shows. But you look at some of the band names on there, it was like, oh my gosh, we played with them, and I'm still friends with them, and I can't believe it. But yeah, tons of shows. But yeah, we straddled many worlds in LA. That was the joy of playing in Los Angeles, is you could do that.
It's true.
Well, we're talking about shows.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Large time,
right.
Ska Class Reunion.
And June of 2006. Yeah. That was a great one.
We did the Dickie Barrett show that the Dickie Barrett Mighty Morning Show, Indie 103.1.
Right. I forgot about that.
Dave Raquiti and Wally from Mobtown were on there with us.
Wow.
All 3 of us were on there together.
I did forget about that. That was to promote this.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And he played our music, and we couldn't believe it. We were telling our friends, "Hey man, we're in LA. We're gonna get some airplay."
I do remember that. I forgot about that until this moment. Yeah. Wow.
Well, you had to have hooked that up for us.
No, I probably did. Yeah, because the Indie 103.1 studios were right across from the Golden Voice offices. So
walking distance.
Yeah. Thank you for that reminder. Let's talk about a couple songs. Some of my favorites. "Move It Girl" has always been such a uplift, just energetic, right? Really fun song, both on record but also live, right?
Yeah.
That was on your. What album was that on?
That was on our first. That was on our. That was like the first song that I ever wrote. So it's like the first tune I ever wrote.
Okay.
And that ended up being right there on "No Dancing Please."
Yes.
And it was like
right.
Yeah, and it was on the Steady Beat compilation, the vinyl, the Blackpool, before it was Steady Beat. So it kind of had its debut with this compilation,
right?
And it's kind of always been like our signature tune.
Yeah,
that everybody knows us by that tune.
Right. And then you also do a really great Spanish language version of "A Message to You, Rudy."
Yeah. Another favorite,
which translates to,
"Oh, Rudy, un mensaje para vos."
I
Yeah.
would picture that. But
Yeah.
when did you first start doing that one?
Well, the first time we did Rudy, I mean, that was like one of the first tunes that we learned back at the origins of Mento Buru,
Right.
because we needed kind of like that song. I think if anybody is wanting to experiment with the sound, if any young musicians or want to kind of like experiment with it, A Message to Rudy is like the ideal template for if you want to learn how to play ska and reggae rocksteady. It kind of encapsulates everything into one perfect tune. That's why it's, everybody knows that song. So
yeah,
we played it over the years, and I was just trying to think of some new things to do. And we said, well, why don't we kind of let's experiment. You can make anything reggae, they would say, or you can make anything ska. Well, can we take one of these tunes and make it cumbia? So we just applied the cumbia beat to it because it almost has the same offbeat.
Yeah.
Right. So we just, fiddling around. When you have the right musicians who can kind of jump into different genres,
Sure.
and it just worked. And it's still to this day, it's one of the most popular tunes. Rudy, oh, my name's Rudy. That's my favorite song.
Have you taken other songs and done that as well?
We did. Okay, so we did the opposite. We did Sabor a Mi, which is a famous bolero, and we made it into a reggae tune. And so that's on the flip side of the A Bailar con Mento Buru 7-inch that Luis put out for us. And those two tunes are actually the most popular tunes on all our streaming sites. Amazing. And let's see, what other ones? Oh yeah, when we did our Christmas EP, East Bakersfield Christmas, we did
great album. I'm getting ready to start playing it again.
yeah. Donde Está Santa Claus? We did that in a ska, Latin ska style. What Child Is This? Green Sleeves. We did that in a reggae style. Right. And of course, Feliz Navidad and all that. So if it works, it works. You'll know.
Sure.
You'll know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great point. So speaking of different styles, do you think that Mento Buru has had an advantage versus a disadvantage of being so varied, in styles? I mean, do you think what kind of path you think you would have gone on if it was more of just like a traditional ska band or traditional reggae band?
Yeah, that's a good question. People will often ask us, hey, I used to go see you when you guys were all ska. I was like, oh, you still having a good time? Yeah, but I remember when you guys were just doing this, and I remember when you guys were just doing this, and sometimes as a working band, with a band with working musicians, some of the musicians who just solely play music for a living, we had to find ways to keep a band going. And myself as the band leader, I wasn't interested in starting another band, starting 2 or 3 bands. I only wanted to have one band, and Mento Buru. And so the way I saw it was like, you know what, you can have a name, but it doesn't really matter in the long run. We tried to change the name, like I mentioned it to Junor, was like we tried Blowfish one time, and it was like, oh, no, that's corny, it's not going to work, let's go back to Mento Buru. I said, it doesn't even matter, let's just start bringing all our interests into the band, and we'll just kind of see what happens. And what we were finding is when we were going to do these shows with Luis, a lot of the groups like Los Hooligans and Mob Town and all our peers here in Los Angeles were incorporating these cha-cha styles. Yeska, our good friends, they were incorporating C-spot cha-chas and everything into the sound, and they were kind of bridging everything. And we said, well, that's what we're gonna do. And as time went on and our musical tastes start to change, we start embracing even more Latin music. There was a big Latin music craze, and we were finding that people were really digging all this Latin music that we were doing. Then we got really hardcore into salsa, and then we were just playing straight up salsa. We would do shows where we would just play one reggae tune and then just a full night of Latin jazz and salsa.
Wow.
And we were still known as Mento Buru.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So you can really adapt and adjust, obviously, for your audience or who's booking you, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's some major advantages, right? To
Yeah.
be so flexible there.
And that comes from us being students of jazz music. Most of us were all students at Cal State Bakersfield or Bakersfield College in the jazz band, and it wasn't always like not everybody in the band was really into ska. We kind of introduced ska music to some of them in different fashions, and some of the ska they liked, and some of the ska they weren't really too much into. Like they liked the traditional stuff. They weren't really too much into the third wave style stuff. But we would have to kind of like, we'll see what our audience is into at this time. And I think every band kind of goes through those changes, and some things work, some things don't. You'll remember when there was a swing revival,
right? Yeah.
And then there would be some bands that would incorporate the kind of that swing thing, and we kind of went
it, right?
Jump with Joey. I mean, they're a great example of what everybody in the band could agree on.
Right.
Like, this is what we really like, because some of the guys were really serious musicians. Like, some of the talent that we've had in this band is just amazing. Dennis Ham, our former keyboard player, who's now performs with Thundercat.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
When he joined Mento Buru, it was like his first band. And so he when he was coming to LA and he was seeing all these shows, and he did that Desmond Decker show with us, and he went to some of the shows that I got us into, we were driving from Bakersfield all night long and getting home when the sun was coming up. We had a few near-death experiences.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because that's a heck of a drive, completely awake and daylight. Imagine, after a concert,
2 o'clock in the morning.
I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah, we had a bunch of crazy things, but we had very blessed to have so many of these great musicians where we were just kind of like, well, we need a piano player, and it's like we could not cast a very wide net in Bakersfield. We only had so many musicians,
right?
And so we had to kind of find them where we were. And myself as a band leader, it was like, well, I got to find a way to keep this band together, and I got to listen to what the band wants to do, what the different musicians to do. Jared Pope, our drummer, who was with us for many years, recorded the No Dancing Please. Mm-hmm. He's now a session player in Nashville, and he tours with like Don Felder, wow. Formerly the Eagles.
Yeah.
Marcos Reyes is now with War, wow. And Rudy Paris, former guitar player, he was on The Voice. He toured with Hank the Three. We've had so many musicians come through this band, and at various stages, it was like, well, what do you guys feel like doing? What do you guys feel like doing? Some of the guys would be, hey man, we need to bring the ska back. So let's bring the ska back for a while. Then we go through a wave. Like, we need to bring the Latins back, and blah, blah, blah. And it goes this way and it goes that way, but we love it all. That's the thing, is we have respect for all these different styles. Mm. So whatever the gig calls for, if we're doing, private gigs, we'll do everything. My band has to work. We've done lots of weddings.
Yep.
We've done lots of corporate stuff, but we love doing those showcase shows, opening up for, being an opener for somebody. And then we get to play all original stuff, all the ska,
right,
and original Latin tunes and stuff like that. Latin alternative, kind of crossover, like it's kind of like rock en español style,
sure.
Which we've also incorporated. It's a lot of fun,
Yeah. No, I can attest to that, seeing you all numerous times. So outside of Bakersfield and outside of Los Angeles, because I would imagine those are probably the two markets that you've played the most. But where else have you over the years played throughout the Southland and even beyond?
We've gone to San Diego, all on the coast, Central Coast, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, Ventura. We've gone to we went to Fresno a lot. We've done some great shows in Fresno, of course, with Let's Go Bowling, who really inspired, big influence on Mento Buru. And because they were close to us, I would follow them everywhere they went as well. They became like, it was like Fishbone, the Untouchables, Let's Go Bowling. And I was like, Let's Go Bowling is our age. We're kind of like these peers. We're in the central, we're out in the middle of nowhere. How do we, how does a band like Let's Go Bowling? We thought we had to drive far. Let's Go Bowling was driving even farther.
Another hour and a half or something, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. We did a great show at at a place called I can't remember. Anyway, we played with Ocean's 11, Hepcat, Dance Hall Crashers, Mento Buru.
Wow.
We did a show in Fresno.
In
Fresno.
Fresno. Okay.
In Fresno, yeah. It was one of those shows, that another one of those many shows that I can remember that we played. And we would cross paths with those bands all the time, where we would be put on the bills with the Hepcat at some pool hall in Ventura. Like, oh, you guys want to come and open up for this band Hepcat? Of course we will. So we just pack up and go, and we'd end up there, and then we play our half hour and then pack up and drive all the way back to Bakersfield.
Right. And we're being an outsider just outside of LA. Were you accepted pretty well, and was it any different not being from LA?
No, that's the thing, is that we were accepted right away. I think at that time, bands, the ska scene, the independent ska scene in Los Angeles was still very intimate and very kind of close knit, that the kids were just into it.
Yeah.
You'd show up, the kids just wanted to dance, they wanted to be cool, they wanted to dress really cool and suave. And so we were definitely looking from the outside of what the scene was all about. And and I've told people this many times. I said, none of us had the look of like a ska band. We didn't have suits, we didn't have pork pie hats, we didn't have anything like that. But what we had was musicianship.
Yes.
And so there was only so many bands that could play. And so when a new band came into town, if the kids dug it, they would get invited back. And Luis invited us many, many times.
Yeah.
I mean, he would always include us on all these bills. And then there for a while, we had a really, really big following in Los Angeles. And we were still the band that we didn't feel like we didn't look the part, but we just came in and we played, and we had respect for the sound. And we were just young people having a good time with all the kids.
Yeah.
And so we became friends with all of them. We stayed friends.
Yeah. And it definitely showed that you all were having fun on stage, which obviously helps to energize and motivate the fans, right, to enjoy the quality music. Earlier, when you and Junior, you were talking about the earlier shows, maybe late 80s, early 90s, when you were going to Reseda Country Club and shows that Jonathan Ford. How did in your best recollection, how did the scene differ, right, from when you went to those shows then, compared to, say, the steady beat type shows that you went to in the mid to late, and that you played rather in the mid to late 90s?
Well, I would say, like, when you compared those two scenes, the shows that were at Reseda Country Club, I mean, that it was almost seemed like big time shows, because you would have Angelo Moore was emceeing those shows.
Wow. Okay.
So, or Dirty Walt from Fishbone was emceeing those shows. So you got to see bands like, I saw the New York Citizens, I got to see the Toasters, Potato Five. I mean, just some phenomenal, like you saw the Potato Five and Let's Go Bowling. And I was just driving up there, and this was 80, 89, 88, 89. It was, I don't even know how we found out about these shows.
Yeah, that's what I was country. How did you know? Right? There was no internet back then, clearly.
No. It was, LA Weekly. You could drive. If you would make a trek to LA. This is funny. I was telling. Yeah, you got to pick up an LA Weekly. Well, okay, so the nearest place that you could get an LA Weekly, if you were driving up north, there was a Chevron right there in Newhall, where there's where everybody stops. There was a rack, and we would drive over there to go to In-N-Out Burger, because In-N-Out Burger was not a thing all over the place. That was the closest place you can get In-N-Out Burger. So we would drive all the way from Bakersfield to say, let's go to In-N-Out, bro. We're young. We don't care. We don't care about how much gas we're wasting. Let's go get an LA Weekly and find out what's going on. Pick up our In-N-Out, come back, scour those pages, and you saw, oh, okay, Fishbone's playing, Untouchables, the Reseda Country Club. Look at all these bands. It's a ska, it's got checkers on it. And then you go, and from that first time, that was the first time I saw Let's Go Bowling. And, and Angelo comes out to jam with them on one of the tunes. I probably have like pictures, like from those disposable cameras.
Yeah.
from a lot of those shows. But I
Wow.
saw one of Hepcat's earliest shows at the Reseda Country Club. And yeah, that was definitely my introduction. So then after that, when you went to the shows with Luis, it was like it was even more underground.
Yeah.
you know
Yep. Yeah.
yeah
Did you guys play some of the more ska punk type shows down here as well?
Let me see.
I mean, whether it was
Oh.
something that maybe Tazy was doing, or at the barn in
Yeah.
Riverside.
We did a couple Tazy shows. We did Ska Parade. We did a show at the Las Palmas Theater
Okay.
with Skeletones, Aquabats. It was one of Aquabats' first early shows before they went the full on costume.
Okay.
And we played there. Let's see. I mean, and Luis would have these he would have like Buck 09 and then like C Spot,
yeah.
and he was just kind of like a hodgepodge. That's the thing, is like the kids were just into everything.
Right.
It didn't even matter. And I think we may have done we did the Ska Against Racism show at Irvine, at Hidden Valley Ranch, Irvine, with Asian Man.
Okay. It was Mike
And
Parker,
yeah, everybody was there. I mean, every band was there. The stage that we played, it was well, the Toasters played on the main stage, but like Kimuri, Skankin' Pickle was already gone, but it was like I know Mobtown played, a band called Freak Daddy. It was like, when that kind of like, there was the kind of the funky bands were playing, and then you had your ska bands, and the traditional thing wasn't really like that big in that scene. It was a little bit too traditional, but yeah, it was just kind of a wacky scene. Yeah.
Wow.
Scanic, they would have some sort of ska in the name. So it was Scanic, or,
Right.
I mean, it was a great time, man, especially when you're that young, and all you want to do is you just want to go absolutely nuts.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, have you played or recorded with bands outside of Mento Buru over the years?
Yeah, I've done a lot of little spots here and there. Yeah, little guest spots and everything like that. But Mento Buru is kept me so busy here in Bakersfield that, along with all the responsibilities of life, if I get the call from somebody, like some of the friends that they want to, hey, I want a horn section on this, and we'll go and we'll do some sessions in Los Angeles. But for the most part, we've done everything from here. When we did the No Dancing Please album over there, the engineer who did that, who did a lot of the Toaster stuff, his name is Matthias Schneeberger. He did tons of those Moonscar releases.
Right.
Where we recorded it at was, and you were there because you stopped by one of those sessions.
Yeah.
That was in Silver Lake.
Silver Lake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we interviewed you for Reggae Nucleus.
Yeah.
Right? During that time.
That was it.
Right.
Yeah, we were wrapping up some sessions, and Schneeby, he's still around, but he's just he actually was the engineer for Nirvana's first European tour, and he would show us. He goes, the band Nirvana? I was like, of course we know, man. And it was like, it's just funny how like the world is so small. But yeah, sessions here and there, but just so many cool people that we've crossed paths with. I mean,
yeah,
I couldn't even remember.
Just talk about, I mean, huge congratulations, and just for you to keep the band alive and going for so many years, and help create so many fun memories, right, for fans and people within the scene. I know so many people who have so much respect and love for you and the band. And what's on the horizon? I know that we talked about it a little while ago, but not too long ago you released, was it last year or 2 years ago, the Christmas album?
Oh, we did it 2 years ago.
2 years ago. There we go. COVID, it's all a blur, right?
Yeah. Well, seriously, right?
But what's on the horizon for Mento Buru?
Well, we're gonna we were working on our 30th anniversary. We knew that it was gonna come up, so we had started working on some stuff. We recorded some different. I had written, the one thing with like writing tunes is I think back at when the early material that we wrote, Move It Girl, songs like Punani, you know, there was a lot of songs that we wrote when we were young.
Sound
And
that
we were,
word sound familiar.
yeah, it was like, the Punani,
Now we have
slackness.
we have to put a warning label on this.
Yeah, it's funny. People still say, "Hey, man, play that Punani song," But you think about tunes that you played when you were a certain age to now, But people still want us to hear us play our version of "Wet Dream" by Max Romeo. They love that
Sure.
tune,
Yeah.
And we released a version of that with mixed with Sally Brown.
Nice. Right.
So right before the pandemic happened, I kind of sat down before our late trombonist Joe Vasquez had passed away. We were working on some new tunes. It's like, hey man, it's time for us to sit down and write again. I think I'm getting the bug. So we would get together and we would go over some horn lines and everything like that. I wasn't really doing any lyrics or anything like that. Sadly, when Joe passed away, I was able to find the files that he had MIDI'd on a MIDI keyboard of the kind of like the notes that we had kind of put together. Like, we're going to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And so 2 of the tunes, I sat down, we got together with the band and we formed the tunes. We have a song called On My Own and then a tune called Mátame, which is the first song I actually ever wrote in Spanish. And we recorded them, but the pandemic happened and we weren't able to replenish our band fund to go back into the studio to finish it. And we'd actually recorded some other stuff. We did a Pachito Eche, and some Lalo Guerrero tune, Los Chucos Suaves, and some other tunes. And they're just sitting at the studio waiting to be finished.
Wow. Okay.
And so as soon as we're done with it, we'll release it, and hopefully before the spring.
Nice.
I mean, we love to get those tunes out right before it starts to warm up because it's such a kind of a celebratory music and it fits the mood.
Yeah.
So hopefully before the spring we'll be done with it.
And then we need to see Mento Buru back here in the LA area.
Yeah.
It's been a minute, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, talk about like all those shows. Like even after the Luna Park years, we were still going over there and playing at places like Temple Bar.
Yeah.
We would play with Julio Desgracias with Norwood and
Norwood, right.
and Angelo at like an art gallery somewhere. And through the friends that we met over the years, Larry Solak, who was in the member of the band 5 Degrees of Soul,
Oh, right.
who played with Tommy and what's his name? I can't remember. They're in Boogaloo Assassins.
Oh yeah.
So members of Boogaloo Assassins, they were, I mean, Boogaloo Assassins, you got members of C Spot, 5 Degrees of Soul, all these different bands and all that stuff. We play with all that. Yeah. Oh, I have to say this. When you're talking about one of the most memorable shows that I've ever performed with, I was able to book at the Cal State University Jazz Festival, one of the last ones that we did here. I booked Western Ska, Western Standard Time, and Boogaloo Assassins.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All on the same show.
The same weekend.
It
was a one weekend.
Nice.
And so when I called up Aton, because I had gone over to see their debut at the Highland Complex.
Yeah, Hollywood and Highland.
And I went over there to that. It was amazing. And I just reached out to him. Hey man, the band's good. And I didn't know that he was in the Allentons.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know about all that. And so I remember running into Wally there and Joey and all that stuff. And I mean, I'm still a huge Joey Altruda fan, thank you for doing that show at the Roxy. I mean, amazing. I used to drive over there. I used to call Joey's house and ask him, hey, when are you guys playing next? I would go to the King. If he would play at some other little supper club or something like that, he goes, oh, I'm playing at this place called Lucky 7.
Right.
I would drive over there and then drive all the way back and get home at 4 a.m. But like, we're not going to be able to see these bands very often.
Sure. You're right.
Anyway, so the Jazz Festival. So when I booked a Western Standard Time, Paul Perez, our saxophone player, was in charge of booking the acts for the Jazz Festival. And he would say, why don't you think about this Western Standard Ska Orchestra? I said, they're big band, but it's something different. It's not your typical big band.
Yeah.
He loved it. We need a Latin act, because Friday night was our dance party night. And over the years, we've had like Cecilia Noel and the Wild Clams, Pete Escovedo Orchestra, Tito Puente Jr., all that, and Boogaloo Assassins. So they headlined the first night.
Great.
Second night, Western Standard Time opened up, was the headliner. But Eitan goes, hey, I asked Greg and Alex if they want to come and sing, and they both said, nah, man, we can't make that show. So Eitan goes, why don't you sing?
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He goes, hey, why don't you sing? I said, really? He's all, yeah, man, you know these songs. And I was just like, can we rehearse? He goes, no, we don't have time to rehearse. So I introduced the band, and I sang, let me see what I sang: Jamaica Ska, All of Me, I'm in the Mood for Ska.
Yeah.
And I think one other ones. And then I did the 10, 9, 8. And then I introduced the band. I did all that. And it was wild, man. I mean, no rehearsal.
Yeah.
There's video of it. And I said, I hope I did okay, because I was so nervous.
Right.
And I remember I was like, all right, everybody, I'm going to show you how to Jamaica Ska. So I remember I listened to the album and I said, I'm going to try. Not going to try to sound, I think I came off more like Angelo singing all those tunes, but I did my best.
All right.
I know I stayed in key.
That's a great.
Yeah. And it was an unforgettable moment, because I look over and I go, and there's Fredo Ortiz, my buddy from Yeska, and who's his career has taken him around the world. I see my idol Joey Altruda on the bass. Can't believe he's in Bakersfield.
Was Corey playing drums?
Yes, Corey was playing drums. Brian Boom Boom Dixon was playing guitar.
So
by the way, he
really early on.
He mixed the Rudy, the Spanish Rudy and Sabor on Me. He was the one who mixed that 45 for us.
Yeah,
and to see everybody else, Brian Wallace,
right?
Who did our dub mixes for our Halloween album. Yeah, and he did the Rudy remix and all that stuff. So to have them all here, I mean, it was just amazing. So definitely, it's in my top 5 all-time moments to be able to, no rehearsal, just get out there.
I'm gonna search for that footage. I gotta see
the cream of the crop from Los Angeles.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
So Matt, where can people find you on and Mento Buru on social media?
We're on all the social networks. Me being in the media, I have us everywhere. But you can go to mentoburu.com. And it'll take you to like one of those link trees, and you can just pick everything, pick your poison wherever you want to find Mento Buru. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff, man. TikTok, we got TikToks, and it's funny to be able to connect with people who have discovered our music from different parts of the world. I had gone over to interview the band from Monterrey, Mexico, El Gran Silencio. And they were playing at the House of Blues. And we're sitting backstage, and my Spanish is not 100% good. So I brought a friend with me to interpret. And so he's all telling the singer, he's all, well, he has a band too. His band, they play ska, they Mento Buru. And then all of a sudden the trombone player comes in, he goes, who's in Mento Buru? He's in Spanish. He goes, well, he is. He goes, no way. He's all, I have your album. No dancing, please. And
that's cool.
It's just strange, and we've had
really cool
stuff like that. Sean Flowerdew, who played with the Special Beat. Sean. Yeah, he came and stayed in Bakersfield with us for a while.
The International Ska Festival, right? The London.
Yeah. He's all doing that, and kept in touch with him. He's come to stay in Bakersfield and all that stuff. And you just never know where the music's going to end up, because we would end up in a lot of French compilations for a band from us, like, in Bakersfield, I came across like these box of letters of people saying, hey, we would like to have you on this compilation. And I remember having to send them a DAT tape. Right. And I mean, there's just so many memories of all that.
I can imagine.
That tapes and compilations. So you never know where it's going to end up, man. So that's why I tell bands, I said, you guys just got to get out there and play. It doesn't matter.
Your music be heard.
Yeah, it will get heard by somebody, you know.
Keep doing it.
It's true.
Absolutely.
True.
Mhm.
Well, congratulations on everything, and thank you for all the music and friendship, buddy. Really
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it. And congratulations also on your podcast
Thanks.
and for being an amazing spokesperson about from the Bakersfield tourist board.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to have you guys on my podcast because then I
Sure.
can pick your brains because I am a freak geek about all the histories. That's why I've enjoyed listening to your podcast. One of my favorite ones was when you interviewed what's the name from the singer from the Untouchables?
Oh, Jerry.
Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jerry.
So to hear some of those names, because I would go see the Untouchables and then to have them there, you know, there for a while, one of their bass players was from Bakersfield.
Okay.
So when it was around the time of Live and Let Dance, when that album was out,
Yeah.
the bass player during that era, he was from Bakersfield.
Wow.
And even
Down driving.
yeah, one of the keyboard players from Fishbone before Chris came back to the band, he was from Bakersfield as well. He lived in Bakersfield. So you just never know. You just
Infiltrating
never
everywhere.
know. Yeah. you know, Bakersfield is one of those places where you can live affordably and you can go on tour. You know, singer Gregory Porter, who's one of the most famous jazz singers out right now. He's from Bakersfield. You know, he tours all over the world. He went to Highland High School, is the same place where my son goes to school now, where the members of Korn. I mean, so many people have gone to the Highland High School, which is so interesting to me. He moved away, toured the world. He's now living back in Bakersfield, and he does a lot of his recording at one of the small studios here. Don comes to town,
Oh, yeah.
oversees a lot of his recording. So you'll be surprised at how many kind of people kind of live in the shadows through here, you know, on the down low.
I'd be remiss not to mention the Capsules. They're from Bakersfield.
Yeah.
I'm quite
Of course. Yeah.
I've been working with them now for a couple of
Yeah,
years.
solid.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So this is a funny thing. Okay. So the way I've known Chris, who's now, I mean, Chris is doing all kinds of stuff. He's playing with the Agrolites, drummer, Chris Bourbon, him and his wife, Jane.
He's been
they're
above sea level
expecting.
now. He's a drummer above sea level.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
greatest.
Way up there.
So back in the day when I was first starting with the Bakersfield Californian, Chris was I think he may have been just out of high school, and also his friend Ray Vargas, who's a guitar player who plays now with the band Mata Mosca.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. So Ray and Chris were my interns at the Bakersfield Californian for the niche division that we had. And they were paid interns. They were kind of like, there was somebody who was kind of overseeing a program for young people. And so Chris and Ray were always there. Now at the time, I didn't really know that Chris was a drummer, but I knew Ray was a guitar player. And so we would always sit there, and they knew who Mento Buru was. I believe Ray went to go see the Scatolites when they were in high school. So if they got to the shows, it was because they were underage and they were able to sneak in somehow. And so I know that they were into like a lot of punk, you know, as you know, a lot of the kids they were into Green Day and Blink-182 and all that stuff. And then little by little, you know, you just start seeing these artists develop. Chris was in a lot of different little cool bands in town that were non-ska bands. But that's the thing, like with like even the members of Mento Buru, you could play these different styles, but you know, if there was a particular style that you really wanted to do, I knew you could tell that Chris loves playing ska and he has that style down.
Yes, sir.
And the same thing with Ray on guitar. If you see Ray play, Ray can switch from like a reggae traditional style to like Ernest Ranglin guitar playing.
Wow.
So some of these young cats are just so talented, you know, and they've always been very respectful to me, and they've always, you know, they always come out. I try to help them out as much as I can. You know, as time is going on, it's like they don't really need my help anymore. They're doing great. You know, I mean, they're doing great. I'm like, hey man, as long as you're doing great, bro, you just keep on doing it. You know.
Yes. And waving the Bakersfield flag.
Exactly. The only thing that my only complaint is I wish they would play more here. I mean,
sure. Yeah.
You know, because I only play big shows. It's like, oh, you guys only play big shows when Eric books you. You don't want to play down in the crazy places that we're still playing. Yeah, but fantastic. And Chris and Jane, you know, is expecting expecting their first kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ganja.
Yeah, they came out to see us when we did the Via Arte Italian Street Painting Festival. They came out to see, and I was like, wow, I can't believe it. Like, you know, my friends are all grown up now. They're adults.
We're getting old. We're getting old, man. Well, hey,
Yeah.
thank you for taking the time and love your stories and love just hearing your journey. So definitely appreciate everything, Matt and Junior. Thank you as always.
Mhm. I want to piggyback on what you guys just said. You know, please support local music scene. We're saying to our viewers and listeners, support the local music scene.
Absolutely.
It's really
Yeah,
necessary.
We need
Look what happened. You know, guys from Bakersfield are playing all over the world.
Yeah. But I mean, so blessed to be able to continue doing this, from, you know, buying that first Specials tape to being able to play with the Specials and seeing Fishbone to playing with Fishbone. I mean, you know, you just got to hang in there. Any band listening, if you're kind of down and out, feeling nobody's listening, no, I mean, because now bands have it easier. You could just put something on the internet and you never know who's going to be listening. Back then, you know, we had to drive to get an LA Weekly, you know, and a burger and drive all the way back for shows. You know, I was commitment. But now take advantage of all the resources that you have and just keep your musicianship top notch.
Yes. Sound advice. And on that note,
yes, sir.
We will say thanks again.
Thanks to everyone.
Yes.
Please subscribe to the podcast series and our YouTube channel. Follow at History of LA Ska on Instagram and join our Facebook group. A lot of people are joining. A couple of people came in this week. I saw you.
Yes.
Fantastic. Say thanks to them.
And please follow this gentleman at Junor Francis.
Yes. And this series is produced by Rockery Radio at Rockery_radio. And of course, Eric, you've been doing a wonderful job, beyond wonderful, with keeping that list.
Thank you, Junior.
I mean, the discipline. Every morning I wake up, Eric beats me.
Hey,
it's all for the love,
man.
That's why Eric and I have kept in touch.
Discipline. So
we know you got to be committed. You got to be committed.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to keep things in order. Yeah,
learning from you guys
keeps me sane. And Matt, continued success with your podcast and Mento Buru. Matt Munoz, Junor Francis, Eric Kohler, and thank you all.
My profound apology for slaughtering the name of that.
It's okay. It's okay.
It took me a while to recover.
You want to try again?
No, sir.
Hey, like I had a friend that used to say, because somebody had actually misspelled my surname as Munzo, Munzo, and so he used to call me, it's the amazing Munzo.
Ooh, I like it. That's what Junior was going for.
I'm just joking with you, Junior. Hey, thank you so much for having me, and talk about Mento Buru and everything. You know,
absolutely. And thank you all for listening and watching, and for all the ongoing support. Much love, and Matt, we'll see you again soon, buddy. Junior,
all right, brothers.
Yeah, it's gonna be soon.
Yes,
my word.
All right.
Right on, brothers.
Everyone.
Peace.
Bye-bye.